You're watching Canadian Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. From Toronto, Ontario, I'm Catherine Bullock. Assalamu alaikum and greetings of peace. Today a conversation with Dr. Rabia Khan about prophetic medicine. But first, some news headlines. Ottawa releases statement on International Religious Freedom Day. Toronto 18, chief architect under court review for internet access. 5 Sikh men given award from City after pulling off a daring rescue in British Columbia. And European countries call Israel's building plans a violation of international law. And now the details. Global Affairs Canada released a statement on International Religious Freedom Day today, acknowledging freedom of religious belief and practice as a universal human right. It said that, as a multicultural, multi-faith and multi-ethnic society, Canada stands in solidarity with all faith and belief communities against all hatred and intolerance, and shares their desire to build a more just and inclusive world. The statement reviewed government actions to address hatred and intolerance in Canada, including the national summits on Islamophobia and anti-Semitism. The statement also acknowledged the oppression of ethnic minority Uyghurs in China and crimes against Muslim minorities in Myanmar. Sharif Abdul Halim will attend a parole review concerning his access to devices and the internet. Abdul Halim was the chief architect of the Toronto 18 plot in 2006. This was the plan to detonate bombs at the Toronto Stock Exchange. There were also plans to march into Parliament and behead the Prime Minister. Since he was convicted in 2011 on charges of terrorism, Abdul Halim was released on parole 10 months ago. At a halfway house, the once software engineer asked for increased access to computers and the internet to update his skills. As of now, Abdul Halim is only allowed one device. 5 Sikh men emerged as heroes after saving a stranded man in Ridge Meadows, British Columbia. Reacting quickly to seeing the men in the water below who were at risk of being swept into rapid currents, they tied together their turbans and jackets to create a 10-meter-long rope. The rope was then lowered to the men, bringing them to safety. This daring rescue earned the men special awards. They were also to meet with the Premier of British Columbia, John Horgan. One rescuer, Gurpreet Singh, said that their efforts have made the Sikh community proud, both in British Columbia and back home. 12 European countries released a joint statement on Thursday insisting that Israel halt its plans to expand settlements in occupied Palestinian territories. They highlighted that Israel's plans violate international law and undermine the efforts going into making a two-state solution a reality. They called on all parties to respect the UN Security Resolution number 2334, which states that Israel's settlement activity is a flagrant violation of international law and has no legal validity. On Wednesday, Israel's Higher Planning Council approved a decision to build over 3,000 settlements in the West Bank. The US has also sharply criticized Israel's decision. Canada has not released a statement yet on the issue. That's it for the news, and now our conversation with Dr. Rabia Khan about prophetic medicine in the modern era. Welcome to the show, Dr. Rabia. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So when I first converted to Islam, which was a long time ago now, I heard about something called prophetic medicine, and I did a little bit of reading about it. So how about sharing with the viewers what prophetic medicine is?
Okay, so the Prophet, as we know, was a man who lived in 7th century Arabia, and he had access to the remedies and the cures of the time. But when revelation came, it sort of guided him. He became our example of how to lead our lives. And in that obviously was included health and healing and well-being. And it was very much of a holistic approach.
What does that mean, a holistic approach?
So when we look at the Quran, which is our guide, which was the guide for the Prophet at the time, it talks about all aspects of life. So your physical well-being, your mental health, nutrition. There's so many different nuances that the Prophet mentions. For instance, he encourages us to teach our children swimming and archery and horseback riding from a physical fitness point of view. From a nutrition point of view, he encourages us to, and in very pithy words, he'll say, leave a third of your belly empty, or only fill a third of your belly with food, a third with drink, and leave a third empty. So practicing that moderation and balance. So that kind of thing.
So is prophetic medicine different from Islamic medicine?
No, I would say it's one of the same. I feel like sometimes we make the Prophet out to be superhuman, but he was a human like you and I, but his guide was the Quran, which is what we have today. And so again, in the Quran, we will find so much guidance around holistic and moderate and balanced approach. We tend to focus on the word halal, but we forget the word tayyib. Tayyib means good and pure and wholesome. So to me, that's local and seasonal and not processed food. And there's so much guidance like that for us in the Quran.
What I'm hearing you say then, you're a medical doctor, you've trained, you're the lead physician. Do you find then any conflicts between what you've learned through modern medicine and what you're saying about the holistic guide of the prophetic medicine?
No, not at all. No contradictions there. There's a lot of overlap. Like I said, when I look at the Quran, I see there's certain themes. For instance, preventative medicine is a big thing, as it is for us today. Even things like breastfeeding, hygiene and oral hygiene, the importance of sleep. God has created night for sleep, and we know the importance of that in terms of ridding our bodies of toxins and building memories and cognitive health. So no contradictions.
What about some of the more exact prescriptions? For example, rub dates on the infant's gums. Do you think those are sort of 7th century obsoleted, or use a miswak, or you're saying that you don't find a contradiction? Are there no obsolescences in more specific things that he advised us to do?
No, those are good examples. And I feel like, so one of the sayings of the Prophet was, for every cure, there's a disease. For every disease, there's a cure. And that gives us hope, right? So the disease wasn't seen as a punishment. Rather, the early Muslims sort of built on that and took the knowledge that they had and built on it. And there was a proliferation of, scientific research into so many different aspects. They were true polymaths, right? So there was the foundation, for instance, of ophthalmology that we have today is built on the science and research that was done at that time by people such as Ibn Sina, known as Avicenna, and Ibn al-Haytham. And so these people really truly understood the rigorous evidence-based approach.
I've read, though, that they were operating in what was called the Galenic, basically ancient Greek approach to medicine, which I'm not a medical doctor, but I understand has been transcended or superseded. So can you sort of speak to that a little?
I wouldn't say transcended or superseded. It made the foundation, like I said, and we can give credit to the early Muslims in the sense that they translated that work and then built upon it. Like I said, there's just a proliferation of scientific research, and they didn't stop. To them, it wasn't you study chemistry or biology, or it was polymaths, like I said. They applied themselves in every aspect of learning and applying. And again, the words of the Prophet, for every disease, there's a cure. And so either we have it now, or we're going to learn it. We're going to research it, and we're going to find it.
Right. Now, there are what's called alternate medicines, homeopathy and other methods, or other traditions as well, Chinese, indigenous. And modern medicine, and they're often critical of modern medicine for sort of treating the symptom in isolation and not taking that holistic approach.
In fact, just yesterday I was attending a conference, and one of the main themes was equity. How do we bring equity into healthcare? And two things stood out to me. And one is, so we as clinicians who've been trained in the West, it behooves us to go back and study our traditions and our history, but also the patient. I feel like we as patients should be approaching our clinicians with that knowledge and that willingness to engage and to have that collaborative decision making, and that's very much a thing now. And so there's room for that.
It's a thing now. So you haven't got a lot of pushback from the medical field, from fellow doctors about, oh, this is an obsolete tradition, we don't want to hear about alternative medicine, modern medicine has all the answers. You don't get that kind of pushback?
So no, everything should be based on research. And so where there is room to validate, as an example, cranberry pills used for the treatment and prevention of bladder infections. It's been researched and proven to be effective. And so there's many examples of that. The use of honey as a method of treating certain illnesses. So,
do you think that subjects the prophetic medicine to an empirical approach, whereas a Muslim might accept something on faith?
Yeah, and so interestingly, I think that the Islamic approach should always be guided by the scientific approach. They're one and the same from my point of view. There's overlap there. We have faith in God, and we have faith in that there's going to be a cure. We have faith in our prayers, but we also rely on the scientific evidence and the scientific research and medicine, which is exactly what the early scientists and early Muslims did.
I sat on a panel once with it was a panel about Indigenous and Muslim perspectives on healing and how that related to the modern medical field. And some of your answers are different from what the panelists were saying. You seem to have a more blended view, but one of the doctors was talking about how she felt alienated through her medical degree because she felt that it didn't take account of spirituality, of the spiritual approach.
Mm-hmm. So I mean,
that?
Yeah, and it's we're in our early stages, as I said. I mean, just yesterday, the conversations are starting now. But certainly, as you and I know, I mean, our approach to spirituality, when we pray and when we fast, the benefits go far beyond the physical, right? So we have that understanding that this is the spiritual benefits are there as well, in terms of our meditation and our self-reflection and our gratitude. So gratitude, as an example, is a pillar of cognitive behavioral therapy today, and that's very much embedded in our Islamic teachings.
I see. Is there one or two prophetic medicine tips that you would like to end and share the viewers, something that you just think is so meaningful, so impactful on one's life, that you'd like us to know about it?
Yeah, interestingly, so another pithy sort of takeaway from the Prophet is, peace be upon him, is that he says, all of our affairs are good. As a Muslim, if we're inflicted with something good, we're grateful and thankful. And if we're afflicted with something bad, we are patient. And so all of our affairs are good. And I think that's a really important reminder.
Right. So on that note, a good reminder for us. Thank you very much for joining us on the show.
Thank you.
That's it from us. You've been watching Muslim Network TV with Canadian Muslim News. Stay tuned for our next episode. Stay safe and God bless.